Now, Femi Falana has expressed concern over the Dangote Refinery controversy, warning that it sends a disturbing message to investors about Nigeria's business environment. The issue began when Nigerian regulatory authorities alleged that Dangote Refinery was producing substandard petroleum products, a claim the company vehemently denies. Now, in response to accusations of monopoly, Aliko Dangote, chairman of the Dangote Group, has put on hold plans to invest in the steel sector. Falana worries highlight the potential negative impact of the saga on Nigeria's investment climate and economic growth. Joining me on the conversation this evening is Sowunmi Olabode. He's an oil and gas expert. And also in the studio, we have a public affairs analyst, Olusesan Okunade. Gentlemen, you're welcome to the conversation.
Good evening, Dashan, and good evening to all our listeners across the globe.
All right, let's begin with you, since you're in the studio with me. Now, please go ahead and tell us, there have been so many questions surrounding, the Dangote saga with the federal government and all that. I'd actually love for you to tell us how you think this saga reflects the challenges of doing business in Nigeria.
Yeah, Dashan, thank you very much for that question. It's quite a negative thing if you ask me for business image for business owners in the country. Our president has taken it as a point of focus to go and attract foreign direct investment. But one thing happens in business environment. You look at the people that are within the context of where you're actually proposing to go and invest in, how they are actually doing. And you can't know better more than the indigene of that particular area, because you look at the cultural background, you look at the environment on itself, how they have access, and how their policies are actually working. So when you look at what we are actually facing, in terms of the controversy surrounding the issue, you discover that it's quite negative, discrediting even foreign investors to come in. Don't forget, this refinery we're talking about is actually changing the dynamics of things, knowing fully well that in Africa you can have a refinery that will be producing 650,000 barrels per day by African settings. So that is the largest when you talk in terms a single train in the world. And people are actually changing the dynamics to say, okay, how can we plug into this? What is the contribution of this even to the quota that we're going to have? And all of a sudden, the regulators within the system are actually condemning it. It's something that is negative, and I don't think it's good even for business investors that is looking in our direction, because you ask yourself the question, if the richest man in Africa, it's not being challenged outside its environment. It's even within the country, and it's referred to as the richest man in Africa facing these challenges. So what becomes of you who do not understand the culture, who does not understand the business environment, who does not understand the business dynamics, that you will now come in to invest and succeed in it? Sincerely speaking, it's a negative thing, and the government just need to think through it very well.
Absolutely, Olusesan. Now, this actually brings to the question, because so many people have been, complaining about the role that politics plays in almost everything in Nigeria. And they are saying that politics definitely has a hand in this whole issue. So can you talk to us about the role of politics, that it's actually playing in the government's handling of this narrative?
You see, in this, there is nowhere that politics don't play into all this game. But it's in this part of the climb that we see politics working against, risk and investment of people. Let me give you a practical example. You see the likes of Elon Musk in US investing so much in satellite. He's been supported by its government because they know the implication of its investment in providing employment for the people, in contributing to the tax base of that economy, in making sure that people are taken off the street to have something they're engaged in. So you see, when you play politics, people can say, whether they support you or not, what you look at is the system this man is building. What is he going to contribute to the bottom line of your economy? And it's huge. You can imagine by the time we start refining locally, people are just looking at the finished product, the petrol, the diesel, the jet one and the like. How about the byproduct that you consider as input to other arms of the government? that on its own will contribute largely to, you can talk about fertilizer. We're complaining that our agricultural sector is not growing, but you have a byproduct that somebody can actually consider as a waste being injected into the agricultural sector. You talked about some other things like paraffin, like bitumen, that you are getting as byproduct that you can consider as import. So when you look at the place of politics, it is this part of the world that we are actually playing politics dirty. It's supposed to look for way, rather than you coming to say, no, it's the substandard is this, is to see how we will collaborate with someone who has taken the risk. Do you know when you venture into a business, businesses like this, you are taking risk. If he has actually lost out of it, who will commiserate with it? Nobody.
Well, even at that, he's been accused of monopolizing the
I asked
sector.
the people that are saying that he's monopolizing it, why are you not using the so-called funds to do your own monopoly?
Get to that, but I'm being told that our other guest, Sowunmi Olabode, an oil and gas expert, has actually joined us. Hello, Sowunmi. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, good evening. Thanks for being here. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, so before you actually joined, our guest in the studio, Olusesan, was actually talking about politics as at play, you know, in the whole saga, the whole narrative that has to do with the Dangote Refinery. Now, we want to know, could this be part of the reason why Femi Falana spoke out against government's handling, you know, of the whole issue?
Okay, thank you. First of all, I'm an energy consultant, which means I deal with data, I deal with figures, and I offer advice. So I am not going to go into the politics per se, neither am I going to go into unsubstantiated opinion. My job is to look at the data that is on ground, the facts that is on ground, and I will analyze it for you, and then everybody can make of it what they want. It is left for people to now form their opinions in it. That's how we work. So
go ahead. Yes.
So if you look at the things, the origin of this days back to 2017, I believe, when the Standard Organization of Nigeria issued a standard for how petroleum products should be in the country. At that time, they were talking about 12 parts. So there was a standard for it at that point in time. Now, the Standard Organization tried to implement it in conjunction with NNPC, but they found out that they couldn't because of the burden of subsidy that was on the country, and if you add into the cost. So fast forward, they started implementing it bit by bit, and as at February this year, Dangote himself was still an importer of petroleum products. But when they had the meeting with the importers and demanded, in this case, the person that had the meeting is the regulator, which is NMDPRA. They had the meeting with the importers and demanded that the standards for importation of diesel and other products had to increase. The marketers then claimed, and they wrote letters to this effect, in fact, very caustic letters to that, claimed that the regulator was trying to insist on greater and improved standards because they wanted to pave the way for Dangote to have a monopoly. That is a fact of history. Now, upon that, they managed the situation, and of course, Dangote started producing. However, along the line, there was a protest, in fact, almost a riot that took place from Shafa Petroleum. According to Shafa Petroleum, they bought 2 vessels of product from Dangote at 1,200 per metric ton. In less than 24 hours after that, Dangote Refinery announced that they were crashing the price of AGO to 800 naira. And they interpreted it as a calculated attempt to destroy their business. And as a result, all the marketers went up in arms against the regulator. Now, the regulator on their own now called a meeting of both refiners as well as the importers. That meeting at NNPC there had the representative of the Dangote Refinery. That meeting had all the importers, and it was almost a brickbat. It was in that meeting where there was a demand by the Dangote Refinery that, based on the Petroleum Industry Act, Section 317, that there was none of them that should be given the import license. In other words, their import license for importing AGO should be withdrawn. Apparently, the regulator did not agree to that under the circumstances at that time. It was there that there were issues between both the refinery as well as the regulator. And that was what led to the press conference that took place. So the rest of which is basically history. So in terms of what is the politics and what is that, it is left for people to figure out. Okay. Now, the important thing is to understand about this industry. It is a conservative industry. It is not like cement. It's not an FMCG product. It is a matured industry. So they are not used to resolving issues in the public space. So that's why you may not find a lot of facts that are on ground. But basically, those are primarily the facts of the matter.
All right, so let's come back to you, Olusesan. Now, you heard what Sowunmi actually said. What are your thoughts on everything that he said about, especially about, them paving the way for Dangote to have monopoly and also, not issuing import license to oil marketers?
Yeah, you see, for me, I will not speak to the aspect, I'll speak from the perspective of a business person. When you say somebody is monopolizing something, you ask yourself, he has invested a lot. If we have competitors, definitely you are out there to see what best you can do. As we speak, the only refinery that we consider functioning now is Dangote. If we have others, they can compete favorably. When you look at the telecoms, when they started those days, it started with one particular one, others ventured into it, and they started having that competition within themselves. So for me, when people say you are paving way for importation, I think we should consider the area of patriotism. You have your own producing something, you have the right to patronize them. That is what is obtainable in other climes, and I would not consider that as being monopolizing issue or giving him an advantage over people. We cannot go ahead and be importing things when we can produce it locally, because what we keep promoting is that domesticate things so that we can have more of the citizen benefiting from some of the God-given gifts and materials for us as a nation.
All right, still on this, let's come back to you, Sowunmi. Now, another concern raised by Falana was that, they're pushing away investors. Now, as an energy expert, how will this impact Nigeria's reputation, especially among international investors, and also its ability to attract foreign investment in the energy sector, in future?
Okay, so first of all, there are certain fundamentals about business that people must understand. Like I said, mine is to provide the facts. There is something that is called the antitrust laws, which basically exist to protect, to ensure that there's competition. And those laws are domesticated in Nigeria, the Nigerian version, which is called the Federal Consumer Protection Act. According to that act, any business that has more than 40% market share is considered a dominant business, a dominant company in that business. That is the law. That is not an opinion. It's the law of the land. Now, and you don't need too much intelligence to be able to compute figures. There's Walter Smith. They produce about 65,000 barrels. They are modular refineries. There are about 4 modular refineries there. By the time you combine their own market share with what Dangote is providing there, Dangote will have a little over 95% of the market share. Now, the Petroleum Industry Act is the grand kernel for the industry. It is like the constitution of the oil industry. Section 31 of the Petroleum Industry Act says that the regulator shall, now in law, shall means compulsory, may is discretionary. He said the regulator shall ensure that there is no dominant player in the refining business and that other things will be protected. So if for any reason the regulator is following that, they are actually obeying the law. Many people seem to forget that when you talk about the fundamentals of business, when you talk about the fundamentals of doing business in terms of the things that make investors to do business. It's not just the culture of the people. Rule of law is an economic fundamental. We can talk in social media what we like. There is no business, no matter how we paint it, no matter how we say it, if you do not obey the laws in basic things that we want to invest. Because what that means is that if you can violate the law in small things, you will violate the law in big things. When they have disputes, it means that you can go at the back and ensure the law is not fulfilled. So more than...
Yes, exactly. I was actually going to ask that. How strong is that particular law or even the regulatory framework? Does it need to be, worked on, or do we need something stronger for it to,
let's not confuse the issues. The law is the law. There's a difference between law enforcement and the law. Every law is as valid as the Constitution. Whether you obey it or not is a different case. So there are those to enforce the law. They are called law enforcement. So, and they exist in various cadres. There is, of course, the police. There are those who are involved in secret service work. And there are those who are involved in all that, which includes the regulator. The part of regulation is an aspect of the law. So the regulation is there as like a kind of big brother to ensure in the overall space that the industry functions. This regulator in the banking sector is the CBN. The CBN ensures that the banks do their job and things work. The regulator in the telecom sector is the NCC. The NCC ensures that that industry functions. The regulator in the power sector is NEC, Electricity Regulatory Commission. The regulator in this case is the Upstream Regulatory Commission and the Midstream and Downstream Regulatory Commission. Their roles are enshrined in law. And part of that role is that they must ensure that there is a competitive environment. Competition has its value to any business. And if you will recall, the origin of antitrust is the Standard Oil Company. And the first antitrust laws was in 1923, where the American Supreme Court asked that Standard Oil, which is the de facto first multinational in the world, be broken down into 7 companies. And the companies that it was broken down into include ExxonMobil, Chevron, ConocoPhillips, the American arm of British Petroleum and Co. Now imagine all of those companies being one company and owned by one person. That was what Standard Trust was then. The implication of that was that there were no companies in America that could survive, that could thrive, and that could compete. And they believed that it was not good for the economy and it was not helping innovation. That is at the root of it. We must understand that what makes democracy really democracy and different from communism is the free market enterprise. The very essence of a dominant monopolistic idea is against the fundamentals of the market enterprise. And that was that law existed.
All right.
After that law.
All right, sorry for stopping you there. But let's come back to you, Olusesan. Now, Sowunmi Olabode, the AFDB president, said something earlier, and about the whole situation, and he stated that the whole disparaging of Dangote is uncalled for, and it's also self-defeating, and he advised the government and the people, who are coming for him not to kill our local industries. And there was something he actually said that resonated in my mind. It says, pettiness is easy. It sadly sends a signal that the price of sacrificing for Nigeria is to get sacrificed. Now, for the AFDB president to even weigh in on this matter, I would really, love to have your thoughts on this.
Yeah, thank you very much. I listened roughly to my friend, Mr. Sowunmi, and I have this to say that some of the laws we're looking at here, when you talked about competition, I think we should put the place of our own domestication into things. Who is competing with Dangote here? Do we have other refineries? I think the other refineries we can be talking about that can compete possibly maybe the government owned, which is non-functional for now. So I feel that if we have a refinery and somebody has taken the risk I was expecting, because one thing you should learn about Nigerian business is Dangote, if he succeeds with this, give us like the next 3, 4, 5 years, you will see 2 or 3 more, refinery coming on board. Somebody always sacrifice on that part. And I think that's the part that Additional Akinwumi is speaking to, that somebody cannot go ahead to sacrifice, to take the risk, and you now sacrifice him for taking the bold step of doing certain things. Laws are there. I appreciate the fact that you don't monopolize it, you don't give him that particular area. And that is why we saw that aspect of asking for people to come in as stakeholders in the business. We've heard about Femi Otedola having the arm of the fertilizer section of this same refinery coming up. You can go ahead and be breaking it down as you grow in the business. But as it is, somebody cannot go ahead, take that bold step of actually investing so much. You can see the dynamics is taken. Now that we are frustrating that, he's already considering, offering his process in the steel industry. Yeah. And that on its own, we have a large impact on what we're saying. What we are saying is that not only for Dangote, when people take that bold step of taking the risk of investing or innovating or bringing out certain things, we should come around and see how that can be successful, which in turn we open more doors, because you now be like a pioneer a business venture in that, where people will learn from and grow other business. And that's why I won't considering those importing this product into the country as competitor that will be competing with Dangote to now say, let's give them that safe landing than it. We must look for a way to domesticate this, because when we have this done locally, we improve on the side of our employment, we contribute to the bottom line in terms of the tax that we'll be getting from them. And on the global space, it will actually give us that image that something positive is coming from this part of Africa. I think that's the aspect we need to look at it. Every one of us have been saying it, that Dangote enjoy monopoly. But I'll tell everyone, for everyone that takes the risk, you must have that benefit to enjoy that monopoly. Because while you are actually...
Especially when it comes to employment and economic opportunities.
Yeah, when you are taking the risk, people are not considering that risk is actually for you, and anything can go wrong. If he has actually invested in this and it has gone the other way around, I'm sure that people will shy away from it and consider that may not be viable. But we are seeing the positive aspect of what this can be. And I can tell you, it's an eye-opener of which we can see other people who are business-oriented opening more to, like we have in Saudi Arabia, more other refineries coming up only owned by our own locals, which I believe is something we can achieve.
All right, now, Sowunmi, if you're still with us, I actually earlier read something, in the news that the establishment of this particular refinery by Dangote has seen accelerating closure of Europe's existing 90 refineries. Now, how true is this, and how do you think that the oil refineries production would impact or has impacted European refineries?
Okay, thank you very much. I think you are the one that has that information, so you may want to verify it. I mean, like I said, I don't deal in rumors.
So you didn't hear anything about that? You're not sure if that is the truth or not?
If that were true, it would be news.
Well, it is news. I actually saw it. Yeah, I read it in the news.
Which news channel? You understand? Because what I'm saying is that if that were true, it would not just be, it would be things that analysts all over Europe would be discussing. They will be discussing energy security issues. They will be, because it has many implications. In other words, it will be a disruptive energy plan and all that.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking you to verify.
Well, I'm saying I've not heard that. So you said you have the information. Where is the source of the information? You are the investigative journalist. You get? So what I'm saying is that I deal with facts on ground, and that is not a fact as far as I'm aware, because anybody can come up with anything, and there are so many things on blogs, but you just have to learn to decipher it and come up with facts. So, and I don't comment on rumors. It's not, I mean, we will just spend time doing nothing if we are commenting on rumors and denying this and that. So as far as I'm concerned, the refinery business as part of the value chain is a low margin business, and that is why many people shy away from it. The margins there are low, and there are many factors that go into it. If you check, when Dangote himself went to the Caribbeans, where he gave his first interview, he said during the process, he had a dinner with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. And that guy and the gentleman made reservations about the refinery business, primarily because of his low margins. This is quoting Dangote himself. So there are reasons why many people don't get involved in it, and there are reasons why there are very few of them. Now, in terms of risk, every business has a risk. You get there are risk portfolios and all that, and it is based on your risk appetite that you do certain things. The other part I thought I should mention is the fact that there's a difference between competition as a slogan and then competition as a technical economic term. Anybody doing any aspect of your business is a competitor. That is a technical term. It's not about the size of the term. Then there is also another issue of energy security. Energy security for any country, whether it's US, means that you must have diversified sources of energy. If the importing network or network as we know it is suddenly closed, these are some implications. One, those who have built tank farms on the coast that have been built over the last 20 years, they will be sacked and they will go home. The companies that have the capacity to get letters of credit from international banks that they use to bring in diesel and coal, all that network will cease. Their ability and their relationships with vessels to bring in products, all that will cease. Ultimately, that will still happen. But if we stop it today, it will cease. And our only supply then will be Dangote Refinery. Now, what happens if one day something happens in the refinery, Dangote is upset or something, and he closes the refinery, travels to the Bahamas, and switches off the phone? I'm not saying it will happen, but that is a risk, and it can happen. That is why there is no nation that uses one source as their source of energy supply. And that is why there can be a waiting period until these other refineries come into play, and then the demand can actually be there. Let us not forget, the law is the law. I remember
it seems Olusesan actually has something to say about what you just your last statement.
No, I'm only
because
nodding.
If you don't allow me to finish, then there's no point.
Let him land.
Right, please go ahead.
Allowing me, you're inviting me. Because so if you have asked a question, you should allow me to land on this. The final point I was just trying to make. In 2011, my mother told me a story. She went to the US, and like most elderly women she had palm oil, she had soap, she had cooked food and all that. And the gentleman at the JFK airport in New York stopped her and seized all the things. And then, of course, she had complaints. She's always been coming to the US and all that. But she said something that struck me. The man said that he understands because he's actually married to a Nigerian. He was a Black American that lives in Bronx. And he told her that he understands the issues. He says, but the law is the law. And the law does not permit him to allow her. Until we understand that part of being a civilized society is that however small the law is, however big the law is, should apply to the big man as well as to the small man, and that individuals cannot be bigger than a system, then the kind of progress we want will not happen.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that. Time is really not on our side. I would like to actually hear from you briefly before we wrap up. Lastly, about unfair advantage. Some have actually argued that, Dangote received favorable treatment from government, including tax breaks and also subsidies. Now, what role do you think, personal relationships or even nepotism, which has actually been an issue in Nigeria for a really long time, aside, the monopoly, play in government's decision-making process, regarding the refinery as a business person?
Okay, I would say I love the path Mr. Sowunmi said that this business venture is something that you have just minimal gains. That's why people shy away from it. And I think on that premise, it's enough for government to give their weight behind somebody taking risk when you already have the foreknowledge that it's not something that you're going to make so much margin on. But for the part that you are having something from your country that people do not have that risk appetite to take, and you're taking it, I think it's enough. I won't want to go the route of saying nepotism. It's about you having that risk to take, and you have the boldness to pursue it to a logical conclusion. These are things that we've expected even the government of our nation to have taken as bold step. And somebody is coming out to say, maybe this information we are hearing from Mr. Sowunmi gives us the reason why government is really not interested in fixing our refinery because of the low margin that they consider that they're going to gain from it, which will not put them on a good pedestal. But somebody is taking the bold step to say, I'll go ahead and do this and make this production, refine this product locally. And that's why for us, we'll put our weight behind him as citizens to say we have our own, coming out to do something that is exceptional, that people consider as a risk-averse place, but is venturing into it that irrespective of, even if I'm going to break even, I'll get this done for my country, and that's why we're putting our way. It's not about nepotism, but about the boldness that somebody have and the tenacity to say, I'll pursue this to a logical conclusion to place my country on that pedestal that every other nation will respect us.
All right, well, thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining on the conversation and speaking on this. Sowunmi Olabode, oil and gas expert, and also Olusesan Okunade, public analyst. Thank you so much once again.
Thanks for having us.